Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to the Toronto Raptors 130-122 win against the New Orleans Pelicans. Riker, game one of the season, the Raptors got their championship rings. Exciting overtime thriller all around start to the year. You know, a lot of players coming out strong, and just what are your thoughts on the Raptors basketball being back in action? The Raptors Digest pod's back to throwing stuff out there consistently. It's an exciting time of year.
It's a big, exciting time. The ring ceremony, the banner hanging, then the Raptors were out tonight to win. The fans wanted to see a victory. We see the emergence of Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam, the new faces of the Toronto Raptors, arguably, the new alpha males on the court, and the Pelicans, they did their best to spoil what ended up being a perfect night. But instead, we saw the best possible outcome. So let's jump right into it and break it down. Ben, what did you like the most about this game?
Well, when you talk about what you like the most, last year we had a guy that we used to talk about a lot with who excited us the most. But now we have two new faces of the Toronto Raptors, and that's Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet. They came out here El Fuego. They were cooking. They were ready to eat some New Orleans Pelicans games. You know, they've been itching to get this season started, and we saw Fred VanVleet come out and drop 34 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, 12 of 18 from the field, 5 of 7 from the three-point line. Looked like he couldn't miss everything he put up. We're gonna dive deep into these two players going forward, but Pascal Siakam also with a ridiculous night, 34 points as well, 18 rebounds. He was it wasn't as efficient from the field, but a lot of those were finishes around the rim, and then he put it back, keep tipping it. So I think that's why his field goal percentage looks a bit worse than it probably actually reflects his playing. 5 assists as well. Riker, just what are your overall thoughts on our two new main guys? We've been talking the whole summer about how Fred and Siakam have to step up with Kawhi and Green gone. They were ridiculous tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. The caveat, of course, being it is the Pelicans. It's a Zion-less Pelicans, whatever
good.
Impact. They played fantastic, and it's going to be the case for the rest of the season. This is the defending championship Toronto Raptors at home. Teams are not coming to mess around. They're coming to steal these games at one of the best home courts in the entire league. So the Raptors always have to be dialed in. And with this small sample size, we saw what might be to come for the rest of the season, which is very exciting. Now, 2 years ago, Ben, maybe 3 years ago, we've always been high on all the Raptors players, but would you have said that an undrafted Fred VanVleet and a 27th pick Pascal Siakam would end up being the faces of the franchise? Maybe not, right? Probably definitely not. So this is a pretty crazy, absurd turnaround. It's the kind of underdog story that Toronto is going to really gravitate towards and love, and there's a lot of things. You have the full breakdown, what you saw, what their development has been. I think it's looking positive for these two players especially, let alone the rest of the team.
Yeah, I just want to throw out there, Pascal Siakam's first preseason game with the Toronto Raptors in his rookie year, he looked really nice. He had like 10 points or something. I think I threw out a tweet that he's going to win MVP. So, you know, I might have been the first one to call him. But on a serious note, Fred VanVleet tonight, we'll talk about him first because he had a scary injury situation there, but you know we'll talk about that after and leave it for the segments. But when he was into this game, when he was ready to go, you know, 34 points, but the shots that he was hitting, because last year we saw Fred with a tight handle be able to get in the lane, but he never usually finished around the rim. He usually drove in to kick it out and get the offense going. But this year he's going in using that large frame and finishing with these ridiculous kind of scoop shots, extended layups. He's looking like Kyrie Irving out there in terms of how he's finishing, the way he's using his body and his hands to get these creative shots over bigger defenders. It's really encouraging to see because Fred's always been capable of using his body and getting into good position underneath the rim, but he just usually get blocked when he threw it up, so he'd usually start kicking out because he's a high IQ player, and his confidence with the ball in his hands, you know, he went 5 for 7 from the three-point line tonight. His three-point shot isn't something I've ever been worried about, but 7 assists, 5 rebounds, just everything we could ask for Fred VanVleet in terms of managing the offense. He started this game. You know, there's been some questions about him or Norm starting. I think Fred's gonna be the de facto 2 starter this year, even though Norm, maybe some games we'll see him come off the bench, but Fred's just ridiculous in terms of what he did playing with Kyle Lowry. Well, what were your just thoughts on Fred VanVleet's game tonight?
Well, as you said, Ben, you mentioned it before, not this podcast, just in talking. he must have had more kids over the offseason. We know that Fred had his infamous slump in shooting from distance. He had a son, gave birth to his son, and all of a sudden we saw the most dramatic turnaround in NBA three-point percentage in the league. He must have had a few more kids over the offseason. And Ben, do you think he's got to have a few more kids throughout this season to keep it up?
Yo, this is something I'm throwing out to the fans. How many kids is Fred VanVleet having throughout the course of this year? Because I'm telling you, it's... he must have had 5 or 6 before this game, showing up at this kind of performance. It was a career high for Fred VanVleet. He's going to be busting out kids left, right, and center throughout this season. But, he's looking confident out there. That's the big thing with Fred VanVleet. And, he's been regarded as a guy that's going to have to step up. But the guy that's just got the max contract, just got the reins of the franchise given to him, Pascal Siakam. He... not to be overshadowed by Fred VanVleet, he dropped the same amount of points, 18 rebounds, and for stretches looked unstoppable in this game. He gave me just images of Giannis, Antetokounmpo, LeBron James-esque. I know it's one game and it's a small sample size. I'm not saying it's as good as these players yet, but just the way that the Pelicans were trying to throw everyone they could at him, and they couldn't stop him going to the rim, it was great to see. And Riker, you and I brought up all of last year about how Pascal Siakam, with his handle, his handle caught up to his speed, and now he's able to slash, he was able to catch the ball in the fast break, carry the offense, and, that was really exciting to see last year. We didn't expect much development from his handle this year, but, not only is his handle now caught up with his speed and his athleticism, his frame, now it's getting him open shots. He's out there looking smooth. We all know the spicy pea spin, but he's going to the rim, he's dribbling in between people. His smoothness on the court, that's one thing that really caught my eye in this game. Riker, what did you see from Siakam?
He picked up some bad fouls, right?
I
questioned a few of them from the ref. Yeah, exactly. I questioned a few of it, but that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. You got to just play through it. But the biggest thing, we knew that he was working on his ball handling, and we saw tremendous improvements from last season. Same thing with his shooting, especially his three-point shooting. His confidence has always been high. We saw that it was high last season. My big asterisk on this season was, is he going to become a more intelligent player? Mm-hmm. Throwing the ball out of bounds, bad passes.
He wasn't much of a passer last season.
Shot selection at time. Yeah, exactly. So is his improvement and is his confidence, is that going to be aligned with his potential improvement in IQ and shot selection? And it seems to be that he slowed his game down a little bit, at least in this one game sample size. And that to me is the most promising thing about Pascal Siakam, because if he can figure out his IQ, and I believe that he had whatever his stat line was, the last player that put that up in a season opener was Anthony Davis. That's good company to have.
30 and 15.
And I think that he has... Yeah, exactly. There you go. So he is on a good projection moving forward, and I really like what I saw tonight.
Certainly, and you brought up his IQ. His passing night, he had 5 assists. Rarely you'd see that kind of number from Pascal last year. He's making passes off the dribble, whether it led to a score or not. Really encouraging game from him. A lot of other positives before we get too long into this podcast. OG Anunoby, he looked great. His defense, his rebounding. We all know that his defense has always been man-on-man defense. Aside from a couple times Jrue Holiday caught him down the stretch, OG was clamp god. He's back to our lockdown wing defender. Even if he's not consistent on offense, he'll always have that skill. Riker, on top of that defense, his rebounding looked much improved in this game. He was getting up there with elevation for rebounds, and his feel for the game. He was confident on his three-point shots. He made 1 for 4, but, they all looked pretty good. And his dribbling, his cutting, he was catching the ball, ready to attack. He had a nice spin move, finish around the rim. Briefly, what are your just thoughts on OG and what to expect from him going forward?
Yeah, briefly, it intertwines with the rotation for tonight. Of course, an 8-man rotation. Mm-hmm. We have a deep bench, and I suspect that moving forward, we're going to see different scenarios, different situations, different lineups. We're going to see all the players, the deep roster, getting played at different times throughout the season. Yep. So but we don't want to play guys like Kyle Lowry consistently 44 minutes per game, because injury prone. Same thing, Fred VanVleet, potential injury. We don't want to milk those guys too much. We want to give them time to rest. The one guy that we can allow and we want to allow to have the most time possible, we want to invest in his development, is OG Anunoby for the exact reasons that you said, because he has a high ceiling. He's never really been given the opportunity because of Kawhi Leonard or players in his similar position. Now is the chance for him to step up, to develop into the player that we hope that he could, and we're not really relying on him to be the make it or break it player. So we can afford to give him as many minutes as game as he wants, and the potential is there for him to
run with it,
really become great. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, he looked awesome tonight. And you brought up the 8-man rotation, because Nick Nurse, he's been vocal, he's been outspoken. We haven't made a video on it yet, but Nick Nurse has been outspoken with how the deep bench players, no one's earned their position in the rotation. So Nurse tonight, you know, we had our 7 core guys get a lot of run, and the one guy that he has been positive in speaking about, Terrence Davis, he was that guy that got that 8th position. He got 15 minutes tonight, and he came out there, played within himself. He was really confident. We've made videos about him. He's the diamond in the rough player for the Toronto Raptors this season. He knocked down a 3. You know, he didn't come out there and do too much, and we won't get too much into Terrence Davis because it was only 15 minutes, one small sample size. But Riker, 8 men played for the Raptors tonight. That probably can't be the move going forward. It's the ideal situation when you want to win games, especially in the playoffs, but you mentioned it. Kyle Lowry can't be playing 45 minutes a night. You know, Gasol, Serge, you don't want them in the high minute totals, especially our older players and all that. We're going to need some other guys to step up, and you know, do you expect, McCall was obviously out, and he's been a guy that's been talked about being in the rotation. What do you see from the rotations from Nick Nurse going forward? Do you see Terrence Davis being a locked-in guy, or, you know, is it...
No, definitely not. We're going to see the McCaws of the world get some run, the Stanley Johnsons, the Matt Thomases at times, the Rondae Hollis-Jeffersons, of course, all varying positions.
Rondae was also
we're going to see them
tonight,
all...
just to preface.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're going to see them all get run because at the end of the day, you want your best roster moving into the playoffs, and you're never going to know based on practice and, you know, your scrimmages alone. You got to give them time to at least do something in a regular NBA game. So we're going to see a bunch of different methods of attack here on offense and defense, right? So I would say Terrence Davis definitely isn't a lock, especially being a first-year guy. What you're hoping that he's going to develop into the same storyline as the Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakams, but nothing is a lock as of right now unless one player or a bunch of players start really tanking, right? But the one reason that he would play is because he's young, right? We kind of already know what Patrick McCaw is going to deliver. He's only a third-year guy. Anyways, not to dive too deep into it, but there'll be a lot of different lineups. That's what I
Certainly, there's a lot of exciting storylines going forward, but we're going to swing it straight into the segments right now. Obviously, 2 years ago, we had the DeGoat play of the day. And last year, we had the Kawhi Doom like that play of the day. Unfortunately, those two guys are not on the roster anymore, so we're looking for a new name. We're looking for a new name for the play of the day. We're rocking with just the play of the day today. You know, Siakam's our A1 player, so if you can make a cool pun regarding Siakam and a cool play, let us know in the comment section below, and we could incorporate that into the podcast, and your input will be long-lived on the digest. So let us know in the comment section below. But tonight, the play of the day, the generic basic name, you know, I think you have one in mind. I'll say mine first, Riker. It has to be that Pascal Siakam sort of spin, that dime Steve Nash-esque pass to OG Anunoby down the lane. He threw down this ridiculous two-hand yam. You know, OG, he can get up there. He's a sneaky dunker. He was injured for a lot last season, so we didn't see many OG dunks. But, you know, this year I'm looking for some posters from OG. Riker, do you have one in mind?
Clean and simple. Fred VanVleet, he really hit the big three. They had the 2-point lead at the time. Kyle Lowry hit the nail in the coffin, the icebox 3, and I mean there was a lot of plays. Ben, the crowd was electric tonight from start to finish, and it was high energy, high tempo, and it was a really good storybook finish. So there's a bunch of things that we could choose from, but ultimately, I agree with you. I agree with me. There was a lot of stuff, and fans might have their opinion too. The one thing I want to get in, Ben. 2 years in a row now, our title player featured in the play of the day. DeMar DeRozan and Kawhi Leonard, next season, they're gone. So maybe shy away from including Pascal Siakam, because God knows.
Yeah, no, that might be a risk, but we gotta have that quality content. Let us know who you want to see in the play of the day title in the comment section below. Should we risk it and make Pascal the guy, or is he going to be our long-term star? I think with the max contract, we're pretty safe with Pascal.
He's pretty safe.
Yeah, but we'll see. But not all plays can be the play of the day, and some just make you say, oh, geez. And tonight, the OG's play of the day, we alluded to it earlier. Fred VanVleet tweaked his ankle in the third quarter. It was a negative OG's for this game tonight. There were some funny ones, like Marc Gasol's weird hip post shots that he was shooting, and Lowry took some wild ones, but Fred VanVleet's injury, we've talked about the rotations and stuff in the minutes. Fred VanVleet last year, you know, got a lot of nagging injuries that made his season inconsistent. Riker, we really don't want to see any injuries from our guys, especially our 1A, 1B player on this team.
No, absolutely. And like I said, it's a lineup rotation thing. We don't want to stress our big guys, but we also want to, Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam that being. But we want to allow them to have enough run night in, night out to get comfortable being the number one options. So it's going to be a bit of a balancing act, but Nick Nurse is the juggling master of the NBA in terms of coaching and throwing out different lineups.
Certainly. And, we're not saying Kawhi him and give him load management every night, but we don't want to, maybe 45, obviously tonight was OT, but especially when he's injured, 44 minutes might be a lot for Fred VanVleet. Regardless, that's going to be something to look for going forward. And finally, the infamous, the one and only Damari Carroll Gold Star Award, Riker. Tonight, it's going to Marc Gasol. He kind of redeemed himself down the stretch of this game, but he only had 6 points, 5 fouls, 4 rebounds. For a lot of it, he barely had any rebounds. I think he had 1 for most of the stretch of this game. He's looking a little bit old out there. I think he probably has some championship hangover, and he played in FIBA, and he looked really good in that FIBA championship and in the playoffs last year. But the same issues kind of arise from Gasol when he's been on the Raptors, is he's been a bit too passive for my liking. Because, no, he's not going to be our A1 guy in terms of getting the ball and shooting all the shots, but you want him to be confident and look for his shots, and then, because the shots that he does take, because most of the time he catches the ball and tries to pass it immediately. Then he feels like he hasn't shot in a while, and he kind of forces one up, and he's not super confident. I want to see Gasol be playing within, scoring within the flow of the offense, because he always plays within the flow of offense, but it usually leads to a pass, and he only had 1 assist tonight. But, I want to see a more aggressive Gasol on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I totally agree, Ben. The culture of this team, the identity is going to be young, aggressive, tempo, confident, right? But Marc Gasol, we know what he's going to deliver in terms of playmaking, and that's the reason that we brought him into this team. But if he wants to fit into the mold in that championship culture, or what the new culture of this Raptors team is going to look like, he needs to at least be looking for a shot every now and then. Doesn't need to be taking 15, 20 shots a game, but at least be aggressive enough to make the defense think twice. Tonight, I agree. Too passive.
Yeah, and then he'll be more consistent, because the shots that he did take tonight, kind of yucky. But anyways, that's enough for us. Let us know what you guys think. Exciting game 1 of the regular season. You're the best for making this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. The Raptors, we're undefeated this year, Riker. We're champions and we're undefeated. We kept the winning streak going. Any last words?
A long, exciting season ahead, Ben.
Let's get it.
Cheers.